This is the holy gospel of our Lord Jesus Christ according to St. Luke.
Glory to you, Lord Christ.
Jesus and his disciples arrived at the country of the Gerasenes, which is opposite Galilee. As Jesus stepped out on land, a man of the city who had demons met him. For a long time he had worn no clothes, and he did not live in a house but in the tombs. When he saw Jesus, he fell down before him, and he shouted at the top of his voice, "What have you to do with me, Jesus, Son of the Most High God? I beg you, do not torment me." For Jesus had commanded the unclean spirit to come out of the men. For many times it had seized him. He was kept under guard and bound with chains and shackles, but he would break the bonds and be driven by the demon into the wilds. Jesus then asked him, "What is your name?" He said, "Legion," for many demons had entered him. They begged him not to order them to go back into the abyss. Now, there on the hillside, a large herd of swine was feeding, and the demons begged Jesus to let them enter these. So he gave them permission. Then the demons came out of the man and entered the swine, and the herd rushed down the steep bank into the lake and was drowned. When the swineherd saw what had happened, they ran off and told it in the city and in the country. And then people came out to see what had happened. And when they came to Jesus, they found the man from whom the demons had gone, sitting at the feet of Jesus, clothed and in his right mind. And they were afraid. Those who had seen it told them how the one who had been possessed by demons had been healed. Then all the people of the surrounding country of the Gerasenes asked Jesus to leave them, for they were seized with great fear. So he got into the boat and returned. The man from whom the demons had gone begged that he might be with him, but Jesus sent him away, saying, "Return to your home and declare how much God has done for you." So he went away, proclaiming throughout the city how much Jesus had done for him. The gospel of the Lord. Please be seated. There was a movie some years ago, God, I don't even know how many years ago now, but a few. Probably many of you never saw it. It was sort of aimed at teenagers, which I don't think any of you have been in the last 20 years. Well, with a couple of exceptions. Bart. Anyway, it's a movie called Mean Girls. And it's a comedy, but it has sort of some serious stuff going on as well. And the premise of the movie is it's set at a Christian high school, like an evangelical Christian high school. And there's a family that moves into town. They've been missionaries for a number of years overseas somewhere. And the teenage daughter of the missionary family has never really gone to an American school before. And so she goes into this high school and finds it to be a rather competitive environment. In fact, this particular school in the movie, there's sort of a competitive piety among the students, and especially amongst these three girls who are sort of the top of the heap, the mean girls of the title. And they sort of wield their piety like a weapon. And they're very interested in what other people do and sort of showing them up. But what the new girl quickly realizes is that essentially they're a bunch of hypocrites. And so she confronts the leader and tells her that she is in fact a hypocrite and that she is not filled with the love of Christ. To which the head mean girl takes her Bible, throws it at the other girl, and says in full rage, "I am too filled with the love of Christ." It's not easy to live into Jesus's example. And I struggle with this myself. In fact, I have to say that the time when I am least filled with the love of Christ is when I'm driving my car. And I'm sure that there is a special circle of hell for people who run red lights and who don't know how to use the center and left turn lane correctly. That too, blinkers. And don't even get me started on the school pickup and drop-off line. In fact, my wife has pointed out to me that she thinks I am an angry driver, and I don't think that's correct. In fact, I am a self-righteous driver. I feel I follow all the rules. Why can't you follow all the rules? Especially like at a four-way intersection when somebody doesn't follow the pattern and they're like waving other people around. Just follow the rules. We'd all be better off. It's safer. Everyone knows what to expect. It would reduce accidents and injuries. Follow the rules. Why can't people follow the rules? I follow the rules. Except, the other day, I was finished dropping off at school at the Camillus Middle School, and I was coming out to the intersection with West Genesee Street, and there were no other cars. And in my mind, for some reason, I thought I was at a four-way stop, and I looked. I came to a full stop. There was no traffic, and so I just turned left. And as immediately as I turned left, I realized I had run a red light. Yep. But of course, it was totally justified in my case because there wasn't any other traffic. No one was harmed. I had made just a small mental error in thinking momentarily. I was at a four-way stop, and I felt really bad afterwards. So my self-righteousness is protected. And I think there are lots of people who use that sort of thinking in many aspects of their life, especially many Christians. I don't think people here so much, but we've all met people who bear their faith like the girls in the movie as a kind of weapon to show you how much you aren't living up to the standards that they have set. Lots of people want to live their faith as though they were the disciplinarian that Paul talks about in his passage, making sure that we're all keeping on the right track. Now, sometimes these people, they do this because it comes from a sense of love. My grandmother showed her love by pointing out all of the ways that you failed to live up to your potential. And it did come from a true place. It wasn't always easy to hear or to live with. And so I think when we think about our faith, it's not a competition to see which of us is the most pious, and it's not an opportunity to look down on other people who don't have faith or who think religion is kind of a waste of time or who think that the rules don't really apply to them in the same way. They always have an excuse for the ways that they fall short. Invitation to self-righteousness is not the example that Jesus gives us. And when we get to the story of the Gerasenes and the man possessed by demons, it's a really interesting story because if we kind of understand the context, Jesus has gone to the east side of Lake Galilee, to the country of the Gerasenes. And what's most important about the country in the Gerasenes is none of them are Jews. Jesus' mission has been primarily to the people of Israel, but here he crosses the lake to be with people who are not Israelites, Gentiles, as sometimes are called. And he sees this man in obvious distress who's naked, out of his mind, running around, saying crazy things. And Jesus doesn't look on him and feel better or superior or self-righteous. He doesn't judge. He tries to find out how he can be of service, how he can help this man to better live into the promise of his creation by God. And so Jesus heals him and drives out the demons. And I really like pigs, so this story kind of always bothers me a little bit because I think it's unfair that the demons drive the pigs into the lake and they all die because they're so cute, pigs. But it is what it is, and that's what happens. And so the demons who don't want to go to the abyss, I assume, end up in the abyss anyway because the pigs all die. But they're demons, so I guess we can't feel too bad for them. But nonetheless, the man is healed, and this is really important. When Jesus leaves, he says to the man, "You can't come with me. You have something else to do." And the thing he has to do is the thing that Jesus has asked us to do. Because as we know, when Jesus ascended, he didn't take all of us with him. He left his friends behind. And in the same way, he left this man behind to tell the story of Jesus, to share what had happened to him. not to go and argue theology, not to tell other people that they're not following the rules right, not to teach everybody the Mosaic law, not to be religious, but to show through his example how Jesus had changed his life. And that's something I think probably many of us can relate to, that Jesus in some sort of way, in our encounter with the living Christ, has changed our lives. And it may have been so long since we had that first encounter, and our lives are so changed that it's difficult for us to remember or to even imagine what it could be like to not have had that encounter. And yet all of us are changed and altered by our encounter with Jesus. And Jesus asks us first and foremost to share that experience, to tell what it's like to live as a follower of Jesus. What it means for you to follow in his example, the ways that you meet it, the ways that you fall short, but most importantly, I hope, the power of that uncompromising love that Jesus offers for all of us. That no matter what we do, we are beloved children of God, and that Jesus will never, ever abandon us. And that he appreciates that the example he has set is a hard one to follow. And yet he also shows us that the power of following that example is life eternal. And the opportunity to be light and mercy and grace in the world. And when we do that, when we live into Jesus' example, when we reflect the love that we have been given out into the world, not only does it make the world a better place, it lifts up our own spirits and fills us with joy. And so I hope for all of us that as we contemplate these mighty acts of Jesus, that we might recall that encounter that we have had and how that has changed our lives, and to go forth and to share that story with those we meet. Amen.